welcome to Nerds Only with KJ Curry. I'm going to be playing this solo vampire RPG called Elegy, and I thought I would go over in this episode of the series. I thought I would go over the basic setup, my character sheet, and then like sort of the backstory of the character that I've created. So this is going to be really fun. I got this off of itch.io. If we scroll down here, it is miraclem.itch.io/elegy. So if you want to try this game out, head to that link and grab it. It is a pay what you want. So I think I paid $3 for this because it was pretty substantial. I mean, it's 74 pages for the full book, and I had to donate something because I always like to give money to creators that do this work and make really cool things like this solo RPG. So, and then here are all of the credits and things like that. Definitely read those. And as you can see, it is a pretty substantial book as far as this goes. So I think I'll start off. I think I'll just kind of go through. I guess let's go through what Elegy actually is. So I'll kind of just read this welcome here. Elegy is a soul role-playing game about being a vampire and surviving the big city nights while you hide your nature from mortals and prey on them to satiate your relentless hunger. You will hunt for blood to keep your vicious fury at bay, play your role in maintaining the secrecy of vampire society, gamble what's left of your humanity, and fight the deadly creatures that stand in your way. To play it, you create your vampire, make some decisions about the world you inhabit, and set the story in motion. When you encounter something dangerous or uncertain, your choices and the dice determine the outcome. Unlike other traditional role-playing games, no GM is necessary. You portray a lone character in a dangerous world. A session can be as long as you like, from a few minutes to a few hours. So I've created the character, and I've made the decisions about the world, so I'm just gonna kind of go over that and my backstory for my character. And once I do that, I think in the next episode I'll do the first session. I don't think I'm going to do like a live play thing. I think I'll play through and create the session and then do sort of a voiceover, because otherwise I think it might be kind of boring. So but we'll see. It might change. We'll go from there. So my character's name is Mila Stone. You assign stats in the let me actually go ahead, and this is the character sheet that they give you. I just put it into my Obsidian because I want to be able to edit things easily as I go through this. So but this is the character sheet. You assign some stats here, and then these other things are determined by rules. So for your stats, you have 2 5s, 2 6s, and a 7 to assign to these 5 attributes here. I went with intellect as my highest and force and heart as my lowest. I see her as sort of a cold, calculating, almost like a I don't know, sort of just like a cold, calculating kind of person who's trying to make her way through this vampire world and become her own person without the rule of the queen, or we'll get into that later, but that's sort of how I'm envisioning her. You start off with your health, spirit, and blood all at +5. And your focus starts at +2. Your max will start out at +10, and then when you reset, it goes to +2. This can be affected in game, I believe. I have some bonds sort of figured out. So my bonds are Lucas Dillon, and that is sort of a broken bond, which was why I had the strike through to note that. But this is the my maker. I'm a professor and psychologist that sort of lured me in and turned me into a vampire and brought me into this world. And then I have Jack Thorpe, who is a recruiter for another faction. So my character started out in the Olympus faction with Lucas Dillon, and her job was to make sure that any humans who brought up claims that vampires exist were promptly seen as insane. And so that was sort of her job, is to sort of help keep the secrecy. And she realized that she was being controlled still in her human life, and then in her early vampire life she was being controlled by people who didn't really care about her thoughts and feelings and stuff like that. So eventually she was recruited to the Anarchist Front faction by Jack Thorpe, who is just sort of this figure who opened her eyes to a bigger world and, you know, what she could accomplish beyond the thumb of other people. And then this is Emmeline Towers, her best friend and an empath and ghost whisperer, sort of a really, really fun character that I have in mind. Elegies. So the game is called Elegy. Elegy is a song of sorrow, I guess, or I guess it doesn't have to be a song, but in this game it is a song that expresses sorrow, lamentation, or mourning for the death of individuals, groups of people, and stuff like that. So in Vampire Society, it can also mean a special demonstration of profound respect. To sing an elegy means to promise to accomplish something in dedication to a person or ideal. So her first elegy was to promise to uphold Olympus and follow vampire law. When she left the Olympus faction, she still believes in vampire law for the most part. So she kept that part, but she no longer believes in upholding Olympus and the way that they do vampire politics and have like this hierarchy. So she does not believe in the hierarchy of the Olympus faction. So after she went to the Anarchist Front, she then made a new promise to treat all vampires as equals and work to create an inclusive community for them. She also promised to free the open-minded vampires who are oppressed by Olympus or Tartarus, which is another faction that is sort of the opposite of Olympus. They are all about, you know, like sort of, you know, being, you know, getting vampires out of the dark, so to speak, and out of the closet, I guess, and sort of, you know, ruling over humans. That's their sort of goals. So her view is somewhere in the middle between Olympus and Tartarus, to, you know, keep vampires a secret, but also she wants the autonomy that comes, like, that Tartarus believes in, although they have a very different version of autonomy than the Anarchist Front. So and then she made a promise to herself to create a life of autonomy, where she can make her own decisions without having to deal with others. So you also get assets. You get 3 assets at the beginning. I have a CSS class here that's making this kind of weird. So I chose my 3 assets were lunacy. You get the first power in each of those 3, and then you can unlock the second and third ones with experience points. So I chose lunacy. Power: you are able to heighten or dull someone's current emotions, turn mild irritation into violent rage, or obsession into disinterest, etc. I thought that was perfect for the character I was going for, who's sort of able to psychologically manipulate people. And then I also chose Shadow Touch, just because it felt cool in a flavor sort of way. You can reshape, stretch, or overlap shadows, or even separate them from their casting bodies. Your manipulation grants them a mystical density that can smother mortals. I thought that might come in handy. So I wanted something that was a little more, I guess, of a physical like thing that she could do to people. So, and then lastly, I chose Marked, which was, it has advantage and disadvantage with it. So I really liked this for her story. You are hunted by a power or authority. When you score a weak hit, you may improve the result to a strong hit. However, if you do, you have to fill one segment of a 4-segment progress tracker to represent hunters closing in. When the track is filled, a notable foe or force has tracked you down. If you overcome them or escape, reset the track and gain 1 XP. So this is sort of my tracker for that. And I thought that with that, she would be, when she left the Olympus faction, she would be marked as this traitor, and therefore if she uses her vampire powers too much, they would be able to track her somehow. You know, maybe she did some sort of ritual when she joined the Olympus faction where she, you know, put her blood in this, you know, sort of mystical object or something that enables them to track her if she's using her powers too much, and thus risking exposure to humans. So that's sort of how I'm viewing this asset. Next, you track experience. Here I'm just gonna kind of keep down tally. And then there are impacts, which are basically like conditions in D&D: starving, shaken, wounded, sinner, traumatized, and permanently harmed. So those come into play when you miss your rolls. But more on that later and in gameplay. As for my Elegy world, I'm gonna go over that real quick because there are some decisions that you make when you create, after you create your character. You can create your world and sort of customize it. So this is flow of the game. We're gonna scroll down. Okay, so there's like the basics of the world, and then down here there are the truths of your world. So you can choose if you want humans to not know vampires exist, or if you want maybe some humans to want to know vampires exist. And so I chose to have some humans just to add a little fun in there, because, you know, there could be some, you know, government entity or something like that, or a cult or something that is trying to, you know, get rid of vampires. So then you choose how the genealogy in your vampire works and your vampires work. So if you want to have it be like traits are passed down from vampire to vampire through the blood, you could do that. However, I chose to have it be more random and sort of be attached to who they were as a human. So like, since she was interested in psychology as a human, she gets that asset of being able to impart lunacy on humans, and so that's sort of her thing. And then also you can choose if you want the traditional superstitions to apply or not, and I chose to have them apply because it's funner that way. You know, garlic, holy water, the whole 9 yards. And then there's some other supernaturals, so I just have those noted here. And then the factions, you can choose whether or not to have the factions, and I chose to have them because I thought that would be kind of an interesting way to create some conflict in the story as I moved ahead. So And then I chose not to do the lineages, as I said, but if you do, then it gives you some like suggestions of what the lineages are and how to make those powers come through in the lineages. So that is my world that I've created. And then lastly, we'll go through the backstory and I will just sort of read you what I've written. It's not super long, but it's probably longer than it should be. Okay, so Mila Stone is a vampire in the city of Santa Maria. She was born there, died there, and reborn there. Her entire 145-year existence has kept her trapped in the dark city. Her human life was nothing but disappointment, with all her decisions made for her, first by her father, then by her husband. Even then, Mila had her own ideas and ambitions. She had a way of figuring people out and wanted to study psychology. Even with her tactics of manipulation, her father and husband both forbade it, so she took to meeting with a private tutor in the night hours. Under the cover of darkness, she would sneak into the offices of Professor Lucas Dillon 3 times per week. His mentorship helped her hone her skills and learn the ins and outs of the human mind. Blinded by adoration for her mentor, she failed to notice the signs that he had dark plans for her. Lucas was a vampire, and his efforts with Mila were to help him determine if she would make a good progeny. She impressed him enough that after meeting with her for only 3 weeks, he asked Vampire Queen Giovanna of Santa Maria if he could turn her. The queen trusted Lucas's judgment and gave him permission. So, on their 10th meeting, Lucas made his move. He drained Mila's blood until she became an exsanguinated corpse and then fed her some of his own. She awoke as something new, something powerful, reborn as a vampire and as an asset of the Olympus faction. Her job was to help protect the secret of the existence of vampires, and she did her job well. With the ability to manipulate minds and make humans appear crazy, she was able to silence and cast doubt upon any who claimed vampires existed. However, one day she realized that her life was still controlled. Even after being a powerful vampire for 30 years, she still had no autonomy. She'd shed the chains of her father and her husband, only to be chained to the queen and her maker, Lucas Dillon. It took many more years for her to gain the courage to leave the safety of the Olympus faction, but by the time she reached the age of 100, she joined the Anarchist Front after a prolonged recruitment period spearheaded by Jack Thorpe. This faction embraced a more democratic approach to vampire politics, and it was a faction in which she believed she could finally thrive. Since then, Olympus has marked her as a traitor, and she spends much of her time on the run, but she'd rather be on the run as a free woman than safe as a subordinate. These days, she spends most of her time with her friend Emmeline and in the downtown district of Santa Maria. The two frequent the Blood Moon Club and the Crimson Alley Black Market. And that is sort of the setup for this RPG that I'm going to be playing. Session 1 is upcoming. I'll probably start her off, maybe at the Blood Moon Club and see if her old friend Jack Thorpe can give her a quest of some kind. And we'll go from there. So thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.